Chapter 954. Later, Gu Mingming found out that it was Wabiai who helped her 3 sons evolve. His method was simple and violent. He just dragged the 3 of them out and gave them a good beating every day. Males gained experience from battles. Lee's conservative estimate of 3 to 5 years was based on the fact that they only participated in hunting and only fought against wild beasts. Actually, Elvis and Leah could also be her sparring partners, but because Gu Mingming cared too much about her 3 sons, they would subconsciously show mercy during the battle. As a result, many attacks were ineffective and did not have the effect of accumulating experience. But Wabiai was different. Snakes were naturally cold and indifferent. As for showing mercy, he did not understand it at all. He did not hold back at all when he beat the 3 little ones up. But apart from Gu Mingming herself, Wabiai was the strongest fighter in the entire beast world. With such a high-level training partner, the 3 little ones experienced soared even if they just stood there and got beaten up. So in just 3.5 days the 3 little ones broke through their limits and leveled up. After hearing the entire process, Gu Mingming did not say anything else. She just lifted the hide and put on her shoes. She hugged Wabiai's neck and dashed into the rain. "Come little shit. Let's have a good talk about life." Crack, 3 huge trees fell. Clang, a crater was smashed into the ground. Smack smack smack, rubble fell to the ground. A new cave was smashed into the side of the cave they were originally staying in. When Gu Mingming clapped her hands and returned from the cave, Leah used a piece of beast skin to carry her to the bonfire. Elvis had already returned to his original form and all the fur on his body was warmed up, allowing her to snuggle in his arms for warmth. The 3 little ones stood obediently in a row. They promised obediently that they would always listen to their mother and never make her angry. As for Wabiai, he had not felt so good in a long time. He was sprawled in the newly created cave, reminiscing the wondrous feeling of being unable to move in pain. This heavy rain lasted for a full 9 days. On the 10th day it finally cleared up. Gu Mingming felt that she would grow mushrooms if she stayed in the cave any longer. She stretched lazily under the sunlight before hanging back in Elvis's arms. The group continued on their way to Zacharias. Along the way Gu Mingming suddenly laughed. Elvis asked her what she was laughing at. Gu Mingming replied, "It seems that ever since I got together with you, I don't need to bring my legs out anymore." Elvis chuckled and kissed Gu Mingming on the cheek without saying a word. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and asked, "Hubby, aren't you tired of hugging me all day? I feel like I've put on weight recently. It should be very heavy, right?" Elvis deeply remembered the scene when she threw a potato at him when he complimented her on being fat. Although it did not hurt, he could not bear to make her angry. But he had promised not to lie to her, and in reality she was indeed a little fatter than when she first arrived in the beast world. Pursing his lips, Elvis replied, "It is indeed a little heavy after all. I'm carrying my entire world." Gu Mingming burst out laughing and kissed him on the cheek. "Hubby's mouth is so sweet." Elvis secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, glad that he managed to muddle through. The place where they were taking shelter from the rain was not far from Zacharias' tribe. In addition, Gu Mingming was full of energy and the 3 little ones had already evolved into first-level orcs. Their speed and endurance had all improved, so they arrived at the stray beast camp on the 2nd night. Out of topic. Chapter 955. Ever since Gu Mingming temporarily stayed in the cave that Elvis had stayed in before winter, no stray beasts dared to approach it. Perhaps it was because the Beast King aura that Gu Mingming had left behind was too frightening, or because of Cole's words. Anyway, when Elvis and Leah brought Gu Mingming back, the place was exactly the same as when they had left. The cooking utensils and bedding were the same and even their positions were the same. It was just that a layer of dust had accumulated and needed to be tidied up. Elvis and Leah were very satisfied that there was no other person's scent left in the cave. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and brought the 3 little ones to look for Peter and Natalie, while Leah stayed in the cave to clean up. And when they reached Natalie's cave, Gu Mingming was completely dumbfounded. Who could tell her what was going on with these 6 little ones? Her mother-in-law had given birth to a litter of cubs that were even younger than her sons. Hi. Gu Mingming suddenly felt a little awkward. How should she introduce her mother-in-law to her sons? Come, sons, this pregnant lady is your grandmother and these 6 little ones are your uncles. Be good, call them uncles. Imagining her sons who looked to be 17 or 18 years old, calling the little ones who had not weaned off milk uncle. The scene was so beautiful that Gu Mingming could not accept it. But they were already standing here and it would be inappropriate not to introduce them. Elvis seemed to have seen through Gu Mingming's thoughts, so he spoke for her. He pointed at his 3 sons and said, "Hada Jiaoyu Kanwu." Natalie's body was already weak to begin with, and coupled with the fact that she had just given birth, she looked like she was suffering from a serious illness. But she was still very happy to see Elvis and the three little ones. So she propped herself up and leaned against Peter's chest. She smiled and greeted the three little ones. "Hello, I am Natalie." "Hello." The three little ones greeted politely, but did not add on any form of address. Gu Mingming pursed her lips, not knowing how to express her current feelings. Elvis leaned close to her ear and whispered, "The concept of kinship in the beast world is different from your world. Here, kinship only extends to the generation of parents and children." This meant that Natalie and Peter were my beast father and beast mother, but to Huda and his brothers, they were just Natalie and Peter. So you don't have to worry about those complicated seniority and kinship relationships. Upon hearing Elvis's words, Gu Mingming secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It was really a happy thing that she didn't have to let her son call Milk Bun uncle. Peter had no intention of greeting the three little ones. He could only see Natalie and the 6 milk buns. They were all his and Natalie's children, but his attitude towards these 6 little ones and Elvis's was worlds apart. Luckily, Elvis did not expect much from this familial love, or else he would definitely be very upset now. Gu Mingming teased her brother-in-law and felt that he was extremely cute. She wanted to hug him but was stopped by Elvis, who asked with a cold face, "Why, you want brothers to share the same wife?" The corner of Gu Mingming's mouth twitched. She pointed at the 3 milk buns that were not even the size of a palm and said, "Do you think I look like a pervert? When they grow up they will look like me." Elvis paused for a moment before continuing, "I haven't forgotten how you drooled over me when you first saw me. Out of topic. It's the last day of March and the monthly pass expires tomorrow." Chapter 956. Before Gu Mingming could retort, Natalie smiled and said, "If you like them you can choose one and bring them back to raise. You can mate them directly after they reach adulthood." Gu Mingming gave a dry laugh and said, "Are you sure they have a chance of living to adulthood after I bring them back?" Natalie was taken aback and didn't seem to understand what Gu Mingming meant. Elvis's face darkened and he said, "Only those who can survive from my hands have the right to become Xiaoming's partner." Elvis's words made Natalie nervous, not because of the milk bun but because of Elvis. She was afraid that Gu Mingming would hate Elvis for being so obviously jealous and obstructing females from taking in new partners. So the moment Elvis said that, Natalie immediately looked at Gu Mingming. She wanted to plead for mercy on Elvis's behalf, but her words got stuck in her throat when she saw Gu Mingming's smiling face. Gu Mingming held Elvis's face and kissed him. "My hubby looks so handsome when he's jealous." Elvis's frosty face cracked in an instant, revealing endless gentleness and doting. He tapped Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "I can be very handsome at other times too, so don't attract more love rivals for me." "I can't promise you that," Gu Mingming said proudly. "I am a natural-born beauty and I shine everywhere I go. I can't do anything about it when others want to stick to me the moment they see me." Looking at her smug look, Elvis felt helpless and at the same time very adorable. He pinched her little face and said, "It's all right, Leah, and I will strangle everyone who pounces on you to death one by one. Not a single one will be left alive." "Hubby, you are so violent, so bloody and so cruel. But I like it so much." Elvis cupped the back of her head and planted a kiss on her brow. "Didn't you say you have important matters to discuss with them? If you don't want to say it, let's go back. Leah must be anxious waiting for us." "Say it, say it." Gu Mingming snapped out of her shock at the fact that her brother-in-law was younger than her son. She looked at Peter and said, "I want to go to Zachariah's tribe to retrieve some things. I want to arrange for my son to stay here temporarily. Can you help me take care of him?" Peter didn't speak, but Natalie smiled and nodded. "No problem, I will keep an eye on them. I will fight to the death with whoever dares to harm a single strand of their hair." Now that Natalie had put it that way, Peter had no way out. No matter what, he couldn't let Natalie fight for her life, could he? Then he could only protect her. Gu Mingming grinned at Natalie. "Thank you." Natalie nodded at Gu Mingming, then turned to look at Peter. "I think I heard you mention the Zacharias tribe before. Are you familiar with it?" Peter nodded and said, "It is adjacent to my territory and we often fight. Their leader, Reynold, is an iron-fisted person. Although he's only at level 4, he's a difficult opponent. That's why I've tried my best not to provoke them all these years. It's not that I can't beat them, but it's too troublesome to deal with the aftermath." Peter looked at Gu Mingming, then at Natalie. He sighed and said, "I know why you want to go to Zacharias. I will accompany you." "Gu Mingming?" Peter said, "You saved Natalie. I owe you my life. I have to repay you eventually, so there's no need to drag it out for too long." Chapter 957. But before Gu Mingming could open her mouth, Natalie interrupted. Just let him go with you. He has more dealings with the Zacharias tribe. It will be more convenient with him around. Gu Mingming thought about it and agreed. After all, a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake. And Peter was clearly the most powerful local snake in this area. With him around, Leonard would have to think twice before trying anything funny. Offending both the messenger of the beast deity and the stray beasts at the same time was equivalent to going up against the strongest forces in both the black and white worlds. Would a mere Zacharias tribe have the ability to handle two battlefields? Nodding, Gu Mingming said, "Then I will have to trouble you." Peter didn't say anything else and Elvis couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on them. Hence, he carried Gu Mingming and brought the three little ones back to their own cave. Due to the heavy rain, they had been delayed for a long time. Hence, Gu Mingming and the rest didn't spend too much time resting and set off for Zacharias the next morning. The stray beast's main camp was not far from Zacharias. Hence, before noon, Gu Mingming, Elvis, Leah, Wabi and Peter had already reached the borders of Zacharias tribe's territory. Perhaps it was because they had fought with stray beasts for many years, but Zacharias' sense of territory was much more obvious than Saint Nazir's or even Sauter's. They had purposely left an empty strip of land in the middle of the forest. It was about 2 meters of empty soil without any trees or flowers. Gu Mingming and the rest stood on one side of the strip, while the other side was patrolling orcs. Their patrols were not chaotic and unobstructed, nor were they independent. Instead, they were coordinated and interconnected. Gu Mingming glanced over and smiled softly. This formation gave off the feeling of an ancient army camp. It was just that all the knives, spears, swords and halberds had been replaced with sharp claws and fangs. She took a step forward and stepped into the strip of land. The alarmed beast stepped forward to block Gu Mingming. Perhaps they had never seen Gu Mingming before, but Gu Mingming's looks made her stand out. Coupled with Elvis and Leah, one in black and one in white, this iconic combination had already revealed their identities. Moreover, a 5th-grade snake beast, could there be a second one in this world? Gu Mingming's eyes were full of smiles. She placed her elbow on Elvis's shoulder and rested her chin on her palm. Using the fact that Elvis was hugging her, she was able to look down at the males from a higher position. Her lips curved into a playful smile as she said, "Your tribe leader invited me over just to give me the cold shoulder?" The person who stopped her bowed to Gu Mingming and said, "The great messenger can enter any time but others cannot." Chapter 958. The guard didn't say a word and just stood there, flashing his sharp claws. Gu Mingming raised her brows and asked with a smile, "You think you can stop me?" The guard shook his head honestly and said, "Just us alone can't stop any one of you. You clearly know you can't stop me, yet you still want to flash your claws in front of me?" Gu Mingming asked. The guard still nodded and said, "Our duty is to guard this place. Unless we die, we will definitely not allow outsiders to step into the tribe." Gu Mingming chuckled and pointed at her nose, saying, "But I am also an outsider, why can I go in?" The guard still stood there like a soldier and looked at Gu Mingming as he replied, "The great messenger represents the beast deity. All the tribes in the beast world are your tribes and all the orcs are your people. So you can enter and leave as you wish and are not considered an outsider." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Oh, so I am of the privileged class." The guard didn't know what the privileged class was and so didn't reply and just stood there. Gu Mingming waved her hands and said, "I don't want to make things difficult for you. The person who went to report the news should be back soon, right? Let's wait for Leonard to come back first." Every tribe had its own rules. Although no one could stop her if she barged in, Gu Mingming felt that there was no need to bully the weak. Moreover, among the few masters around her, other than Peter, the other three could not bear to see her suffer any grievances. Now that she had been slighted at the gates of Zacharias, all she had to do was give the word and these guards would be beaten to a pulp. They were just doing their duty and there was no need to be so ruthless. Fortunately, Leonard and Nick quickly came out to welcome her. When they saw Gu Mingming, they immediately bowed and apologized, saying, "Great messenger, please forgive us." It was Leonard who made the wrong arrangements and slighted the great messenger. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "No matter then, can we go in now?" Leonard looked up at Gu Mingming and said, "Great messenger and your partners can enter Zacharias, but stray beasts cannot. As long as one of us in Zacharias is still breathing, we will not allow stray beasts to step into our territory." Gu Mingming raised her brows and laughed coldly, saying, "You mean if we all want to go in, we have to exterminate your tribe?" "Yes," Reynold answered honestly. Gu Mingming was still smiling. She looked at everyone on her side, then at Leonard. Then how long do you think it will take for us to exterminate your tribe? Reynold was very clear about the battle strength of his tribe, and the opponent's strength was right in front of him. After a moment of consideration, Reynold said, "Half a day." Gu Mingming asked, "Which is more important, your principles or Zacharias' half a day of life?" Reynold paused for a moment. When he raised his head again, he was extremely determined. Chapter 959. In fact, Wabiai had the ability to do so. Apart from Gu Mingming, no one else in the beast world could suppress Wabiai. Even if they were both 5th level warriors, Elvis might be able to severely injure Wabiai if he fought with all his might, but he would not be able to kill him. Gu Mingming waved her hands. "Little shit, calm down. I promised to bring you out to play. Why would I abandon you? Am I such a disloyal person? Isn't that so?" Although Wabiai was unwilling, he still nodded and admitted that Gu Mingming was a loyal person. Gu Mingming comforted Wabiai, then looked at Leonard. "Since it is not convenient for my friend to enter Zacharias, we do not have to. Just tell me the location of the soul of the forest here and we will head there directly." This. Leonard seemed to be in a difficult position, as if he had something he could not say. Gu Mingming was in no hurry to rush him. She just nestled in Elvis's arms and looked at him, waiting for him to speak. "Leonard." A sweet voice floated over from afar. Gu Mingming clearly saw Leonard's expression change. He immediately turned his head and curled the corners of his lips out of reflex. He did not look like the iron-fisted person he had been a moment ago. Looking towards the direction of the voice, she saw a female sitting on the back of a tiger. 4 males stood by her side, each holding onto the 4 horns of an unknown beast's hide to shield her from the sun. And the female sitting on the back of the tiger was different from ordinary females on land. She was a very beautiful female. Her long, curly hair floated casually in the wind and her exquisite features were as beautiful as a porcelain doll's. This female gave Gu Mingming a sense of déjà vu. She could not tell who she looked like, but her aura was a little like Melinda. However, Melinda's eyes were clearer than hers, unlike Melinda's eyes which were full of flirtatiousness. Gu Mingming had seen the hide she was wearing before. It was the skin of a white fox. Leah had hunted it for her in the past. She felt awkward wearing it, as if she was wearing Lee's skin. She had never worn it again. Leah knew she did not like it and did not hunt any more white fox skins for her. But Gu Mingming knew that white foxes were rare and very cunning. Not to mention hunting them, even finding them depended on luck and ability. Many females felt proud of having a piece of white fox fur, feeling that they were a cut above others. Looking at Reynolds' attitude toward her, he didn't even have to guess to know what their relationship was. "Dora, why did you come out?" Reynolds walked towards the female but stopped a step away. It was as if he was afraid that his clumsy hands would hurt her. Dora smiled warmly and pointed at the group standing on the barricade. "The messenger and her partners are our invited guests. Although Wabiai is a stray beast, he is also a representative of the Snake King Valley. Since he has the intention to reconcile, how can we block them outside? Hurry up and let everyone in, don't neglect the guests." "But..." Reynolds frowned, as if he was very hesitant. He did not look like he was facing death calmly when he rejected Gu Mingming. He was clearly wavering. Dora gently placed her hand on her abdomen. She looked up at Reynolds with watery eyes. "The messenger is the daughter of the mighty beast deity. If she pleads for me, perhaps the mighty beast deity will forgive me. Then I will have the chance to get pregnant and give birth to your cubs. Don't you want a child that belongs to us? I beg you, all right?" Chapter 960. Dora? Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes and looked at Wabiai. "If I remember correctly, the female mermaid who tried to harm Melinda in the ocean was called Dora." Wabiai nodded. "Seems like it." Gu Mingming smiled. "Do you think it is her?" Wabiai shrugged. "It makes no difference whether I love her or not." "That's true." Gu Mingming didn't want to dwell on this issue. She just treated it as a casual conversation and didn't take it to heart. Leonard returned to Gu Mingming and bowed to her. Then he gestured for her to enter. "Great messenger, this way please." Gu Mingming nodded but didn't reply. The group walked to the center of the tribe and saw a towering pagoda made of logs. It was stained with a thick layer of blood, which gave off a dim glow under the sunlight and emitted a fishy smell. Gu Mingming frowned. She pointed at the pagoda. "This is a female who just came of age?" Leonard nodded. "Yes, there is a female in the tribe who just came of age last night." Gu Mingming clenched her fists as she thought of the so-called campfire party that Elvis and Leah had prepared for her. Her temples throbbed. She must find a chance to get rid of this custom. It was too unacceptable to others. Wabi and Peter didn't know what Gu Mingming thought of the pagoda. But Elvis and Leah knew that it was an eyesore to Gu Mingming. They exchanged glances and didn't mention the pagoda. Instead, it was Leah who stepped forward and sized up Dora, who was sitting on the white tiger. "You're Dora?" Leah had a formal smile on his face. The curvature of his lips looked as if he had practiced it thousands of times, accurately presenting a distant yet polite smile on his face. Males were always on their guard against other males approaching their females, even if the other party was a mated orc. Moreover, Leah was just too good-looking. Leonard couldn't ignore the surprise in Dora's eyes when she saw him. They were both fourth-level orcs. Leonard stepped forward to stand between Dora and Leah, but Leah just smiled. He covered his lips and looked at Leonard with raised brows. "Are you guarding against me?" Reynolds neither admitted nor denied it. He just stood there motionlessly. Laughing softly, Leah took a step back lazily. "You don't have to do this. I don't fancy her." Leonard knew that she was the messenger of the beast deity and acknowledged her beauty. However, he still felt very uncomfortable when his own female was described as not good enough for me. He wanted to retort but could not find the right words. He clenched his fists and had the urge to fight Leah. The great emissary is the daughter of the beast god. Naturally, she is the best in the world. Dora tugged on Leonard's arm gently and extinguished the fire in Leonard's chest with just a glance. She then continued, "Lord Leah is the male of the messenger, so he naturally would not be interested in a lowly female like Dora." Leonard didn't mean anything else, please don't take offense. "You are not lowly." Reynolds clenched his fists and frowned at Dora. His face was full of heartache. Chapter 961. Leah could not be bothered with their flirting. He just waved his tail and said, "I went to the seaside previously and heard that there was a female mermaid named Dora." Leah dragged out his last word as his gaze landed on Dora. He did not finish his sentence, but it was obvious that he was inquiring. Dora did not avoid it. She nodded and said, "I think the Dora that Lord Leah heard about should be me." "Oh, not necessarily? I heard that Dora stole a treasure from the giant fish tribe and even framed her own tribe's princess. I heard that she was imprisoned as a tribe slave." Lee's every word agitated Leonard's nerves. Chuckling, Lee's gaze swept across Leonard's flushed face and he cursed silently, "Let's see how long you can hold it in." "Yes, I was sold as a tribe slave." Dora's little hand held onto Leonard's arm and she said, "Leonard bought me and brought me back here." "Oh, so it really is you. You really live up to the word lowly." Leah purposely poked at Leonard's heart and said in a seemingly nonchalant manner, "You." Leonard wanted to explode, but he only managed to say one word before he was interrupted by Lee's next words. "Only females who commit grave mistakes will be imprisoned as tribe slaves. I guess you must have suffered a lot before you were brought back here?" Leah looked at the dense mating marks on Dora's body and chuckled. "Do you want to wash these clean?" Dora's eyes widened and she looked at Leah with an urgent gaze. Leonard said, "You have a way?" His heart ached for Dora, who felt inferior because of the countless mating marks on her body. Those nightmarish days tormented her every moment and he wanted to free her from them. Leah nodded and chuckled. "Defeat me and I will tell you." Leonard had been wanting Leah since the beginning. How could he hesitate after hearing him say that? He did not even maintain his human form and immediately transformed into a white tiger to pounce on Leah. Leah had received professional training in solder and had learned how to fight stray beasts during his days wandering outside. In addition to the many years of battle experience he had accumulated from cooperating with Elvis, he was able to handle beasts of the same level with ease. As for Leonard's attacks, they were ferocious but not skillful enough. He was often misled by Leah into making wrong judgments. For example, the claws that slapped the wooden pagoda, dong, gudong gudong, a log rolled down and the wooden tower that lost its balance collapsed in an instant. Leah dodged nimbly but Leonard was stunned for a second and a half. Just that 1.5 seconds made him lose the upper hand and look very pathetic. In the end, he was even struck in the waist by a log and lay on the ground for a long time before he could stand up. Leah returned to Gu Mingming's side and rested his arm on Elvis's shoulder. His furry tail landed in Gu Mingming's arms. His long and affectionate eyes were filled with slyness as he said, I say tribe leader Leonard, no matter how anxious you are to find a prescription for her, you shouldn't have toppled the bonfire wooden pagoda used for her coming-of-age ceremony. How inauspicious. TSK, aren't you going to call someone over to tidy up this place? Those who don't know better would think that we have entered some abandoned tribe. It's a wasteland full of ruins. Chapter 962. With a look from Leonard, Nick hurriedly arranged for men to move the scattered logs away. But Leah acted like nothing had happened as he hooked Gu Mingming's chin with a fawning smile. He didn't say anything and just smiled. Gu Mingming knew that he didn't want to see her in a bad mood because of that wooden pagoda. She chuckled. This is someone else's territory after all. Leah looked at Elvis and didn't reply. Elvis said in a low voice, half a day he said too much. Mm. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion. Leah explained kindly, destroy Zacharias and turn this place into our territory. If it was just me and Elvis, it would indeed take half a day. But if he is included, haha. Leah pointed at Wabi, who tilted his head lazily. He looked at Gu Mingming and asked, do we destroy them? Gu Mingming guaranteed that as long as she nodded or smiled, Wabi would sweep through the entire Zacharias like a wild horse. He just had to transform into his original form and roll around on the ground. Then there would be nothing left but pancakes, the kind with no skin and only meat. Gu Mingming stretched out her hand. Calm down, everyone, calm down. Wabi looked disappointed. Can't we fight? Tsk, so boring. Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief. She turned back to look at Leah. We are here for official business. Leah shrugged. Expanding the tribe's territory is also official business. Gu Mingming facepalmed. She wasn't used to the beast world style of snatching anything they liked. In order not to cause any more trouble, Gu Mingming dusted off her hands and looked at Leonard. Sorry, the males in my family don't have good tempers. So you better get straight to the point. Where is the soul of the forest? Then we will set off. Otherwise, they won't be able to control themselves and really flatten your territory. Leonard wanted to retort that Zacharias was a powerful tribe and wouldn't be defeated so easily. But after exchanging blows with Leah, he clearly realized that he had overestimated himself by saying half a day. Leah was the weakest in the entire team. He was clearly of the same level as him, but he had been fooled by him. Peter was the leader of the stray beast. The 5th level beasts in Zacharias had fought with him many times, but there were very few times where they had the upper hand. Elvis had always been known for his ruthlessness and ruthlessness. Back then, when he was only a 4th level, he led his tribesmen to battle with 3 5th level beasts from Sauter. Not only did he level up during the battle, he even defeated them completely, causing 2 of Sauter's original 3 5th level beasts to die and 1 to be crippled. As for that Wabi, he was a myth and legend second only to Snake, so it was impossible to predict how strong he was. All he knew was that his legs were trembling uncontrollably just by looking into his eyes. Chapter 964. Leonard stood up and looked at Gu Mingming. First, Great Messenger, please accept all the tribesmen of Zacharias, including the former tribesmen who ambushed the Snake King Valley. Let them become members of Saint Nazir and be protected by the Great Messenger. Gu Mingming was taken aback. You mean to disband Zacharias? Reynold took a deep breath and replied, yes, I am. Without the soul of the forest, Zacharias has no meaning to exist. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes and remained silent for a moment. Instead of answering Leonard, she asked, since that's the case, why did you raise this condition in the first place? Leonard knew he couldn't hide it from her and he didn't want to either. The stray beast Cole once threatened me. If I didn't do as he said, he would destroy the entire tribe of Zacharias. Cole again? What did he threaten you with? Gu Mingming asked in a seemingly nonchalant manner. Leonard frowned. He couldn't help feeling humiliated at the thought of being threatened by a stray beast. But in order to seek protection for his tribesmen, he had to be honest no matter how humiliating it was. So he suppressed his rising and falling chest and said, he asked me to accept a portion of the tribesmen without a tribe, then go to Sauter to seek peace with you in exchange for the soul of the forest. He also promised that as long as I can do these 2 things, Zacharias will not be attacked by stray beasts for 100 years and can rest. Since you have already done what he asked of you, why not enjoy this 100 years of peace? Gu Mingming asked. Leonard answered without hiding anything. I don't trust the words of the stray beasts. I am more willing to hand the tribe over to the Great Messenger. Firstly, after you obtain the soul of the forest, we will also be protecting the soul of the forest by staying by your side. Secondly, I can't let my tribesmen live under the whims of the stray beasts. Gu Mingming nodded, agreeing to the first condition. Then she asked, what is the second condition? Leonard said, when the Great Messenger goes to retrieve the soul of the forest, please bring me along. I want to know what the thing that Zacharias has been protecting for thousands of years looks like. Gu Mingming nodded and agreed. And the third condition? Only then did Leonard turn around and look at Dora. His eyes were filled with pity as he said, Lord Messenger, please pardon Dora and cleanse her of the humiliation. Gu Mingming took a deep breath and said with a troubled expression, what if I don't agree? Reynold clenched his teeth, clenched his fists and said, as long as Lord Emissary is willing to agree to these 3 conditions, I, Reynold, will be Lord Emissary's dog in the future. If the Lord Emissary doesn't agree, then Zacharias would rather die than live in dishonor. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, you really know how to talk nonsense. Unfortunately, I really can't agree to the 3rd condition because I can't do it at all. Leonard was stunned and his gaze shifted to Leah. He had originally wanted Gu Mingming to agree to the first 2 conditions, but because Leah had brought this up, he added the 3rd condition at the last minute. But now the messenger of the beast deity said she could not do it? Leah caressed Gu Mingming's little hand and kissed it. You don't have to look at me. If my Mingming says I can't do it, then I can't. Even if I can, I won't do it. Digression. Today he had wanted to write grand finale in the title. Come on. But after thinking about it, he decided against it. Such a joke might cause the brakes to malfunction and cause my little baby to fall. Chapter 965. Gu Mingming looked at Leah in surprise. You can do it? Leah hesitated for a moment and didn't reply. He just smiled at Gu Mingming. Do you wish for me to do it or not? That meant he could do it. Gu Mingming chuckled and pinched Lee's arm lightly. She then turned to Leonard. All right, I agree to your 3 conditions. Gu Mingming had just finished her sentence and before Leonard could say his thanks, Dora, who had been silent all this while, struggled to speak. Wait. Her voice was dry and suffocating from Peter's grip on her neck. Gu Mingming waved her hands. Peter walked back to Gu Mingming's side as if nothing had happened. After regaining her freedom, Dora lay on the white tiger's back, panting heavily. After a long while, she finally looked up at Gu Mingming. I want to change the 3rd condition. Gu Mingming lifted her chin at Dora. To be honest, Gu Mingming didn't have a good impression of Dora. The reason was simple. Gu Mingming liked Melinda. She hated anyone who bullied Melinda. But hating someone didn't mean she had to kill them. As long as they didn't come looking for trouble, Gu Mingming could turn a blind eye to them most of the time. But since she had spoken, Gu Mingming wanted to hear what kind of wish Dora, who had suggested Carter to imprison Melinda, would wish for. Hence, Gu Mingming said without any emotion, tell me. Because Peter had just strangled Dora, her eyeballs were popping out. The red mark on her neck was so obvious that Peter really didn't have a shred of pity for any other female. But Dora didn't seem to care. I want a male. Give him to me. Damn. Gu Mingming rubbed her chin. In any case, she could be considered as a beautiful flower, right? Did she look like a human trafficker? Lady, I'm sorry. I don't do human trafficking. Gu Mingming laughed coldly. Leonard frowned. His eyes, which had been bloodshot from worry and anger, were now filled with desolation and sorrow. He stood rooted to the spot and stared at Dora. He asked in a trembling voice, You still can't let him go, right? Dora turned back and bit her lip. I will never be able to let go of him. You obviously know. Reynolds sighed and smiled bitterly. I know. Reynold was a strong and imposing man, but in that instant, it was as if a mountain had collapsed. He looked dispirited and a little pathetic. He clenched his fists and slowly unclenched them. He gently held Dora's shoulders and said, Let the messenger help you wash these off first. Then I will go and capture him for you. You're so beautiful, so good, he won't refuse you. Duo-La's eyes were red. She had not cried even when she was almost strangled to death, but now she was crying her eyes out. She said, You know it's impossible, don't you? I have always left the position of first partner for him, but he has never looked back at me. Now that I'm dirty, he won't like me even more. Even so, you still want him? Leonard asked as he wiped away her tears. Yes. Dora gritted her teeth and said, Even if my body is filthy now, I still left this spot on my chest for him, didn't I? I want him, I must have him. Even if he doesn't love me, even if he hates me, even if I have to imprison him to keep him by my side, I still want him. Even if he dies, his corpse can only be mine. Digression, I like you. Ha, don't let your imagination run wild. That's why the first sentence is fake. Of course, the second sentence is also fake. Chapter 966. Dora tugged at her collar. Only then did Gu Mingming realize that although her body was covered in dense layers of marks, only her chest was empty. It looked like she was really determined to give it to someone. But, even if she had to imprison him, even if he died, his corpse would still be hers. Why did these words sound so creepy? Gu Mingming had thought that in the beast world only males would have such a perverted view of love, and females would not be like that. It seemed like she was wrong. Leonard, I beg you, just let me be willful this once. I will only be willful this once in my entire life. Dora cried as she threw herself into Leonard's arms, her heart throbbing painfully. Leonard finally couldn't bear to reject her. He looked up at Gu Mingming and said, "Messenger, please grant me my wish and give that person to her." Gu Mingming naturally wouldn't trade someone else's life. She was just a little curious, so she asked, "The male you want is?" Fei Rui. Dora said the name word by word, her voice trembling. Fei Rui? Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "I'm sorry, Fei Rui, cannot be given to you." What? Why not? Dora was very agitated. Her eyes widened to almost twice their original size. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Because, in exchange for saving his sister, he gave himself to me. He is now in Saint Nazir, waiting for me to mate with him when I am in a good mood. How can I give my male to you?" Dora's body went limp and she collapsed into Leonard's arms, muttering to herself, "How could this be? How could this be?" Gu Mingming clapped her hands and said, "What should I do? I can't seem to fulfill your 3 conditions. So you are not going to give me the soul of the forest? Then I will be leaving." With that, Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder. Elvis turned to leave without any hesitation. "Wait." Leonard called out to Gu Mingming and said, "Since Fei Rui is the Great Messenger's male, we naturally don't dare to covet him. Then, Great Messenger, please abide by the first 3 conditions." He had to leave a way out for the tribesmen of Zacharias. Gu Mingming looked at Leah and he whispered into her ear, "Let me eat fish when we go back and I will wash the filth off her body." Gu Mingming knew that the fish Leah mentioned was definitely referring to a certain mermaid, but now was not the time to explain. She cupped Leah's face and kissed him, saying, "We'll talk about it when we get back." Leah did not reject her. He just walked to Dora's side and sized her up. "From tomorrow onwards, collect the dew on the leaves before sunrise and fill 2 stone bowls. Place the water bowl on the platform of the deity's punishment in your tribe. When we get the soul of the forest back, I will open the altar and offer it to the heavens to wash away her filth." Leonard nodded, then supported the sobbing Dora with both hands and said, "Good girl, don't be sad. Go back with them first and have a good sleep. No matter how long you need to forget him, I will wait with you." Dora didn't say anything. She didn't even give Leonard any reaction. She just let the tiger carry her as they walked back. After walking for a distance, Dora gripped the tiger's fur tightly. Her eyes were filled with venom and viciousness. Chapter 967. On the other side, after Leonard watched Dora leave, he instructed Witch-Doctor Nick on a few matters regarding the tribe's management. Then he came before Gu Mingming and bowed. "All right, mighty messengers, we can set off now." Gu Mingming nodded without saying a word. She let Leonard lead the way while Gu Mingming and the rest followed behind him. Gu Mingming didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that Leonard was leading them in circles around the Zacharias tribe. But every circle seemed a little different. Could it be that lonely old man from her family had set up a diversion? Gu Mingming had her suspicions but didn't voice them out. After walking for half a day, the moon was already high up in the sky and the stars were few and far between. Leonard finally stopped and said, "It's here. But we can only see the entrance tomorrow morning." Gu Mingming nodded as a reply. Leonard said, "The terrain here is a little complicated. Don't move around recklessly. I will go hunting." Without waiting for Gu Mingming to respond, Leonard had already left. Peter was still worried about him, so after giving Elvis a look, he followed Leonard away in the name of helping. After the 2 of them left, Elvis and Leah, who had been holding back the entire journey, finally exploded. Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's waist and said with a serious expression, "You've already thought it through? Find a time to mate after returning to Saint Nazir? No. Gu Mingming waved her hands in denial. Leah opened his mouth and bit Gu Mingming's left ear. He used a little force, leaving a bite mark but not breaking the skin. His long and narrow eyes were filled with jealousy as he said, "I knew you were interested in that fellow. Back then, when he hurt my face, not only did you not blame him, you even protected him and blamed me for blocking the well with a rock to prevent him from coming out. What? Now you don't like my face anymore? You've changed your preferences. Do you care about that bland and inexperienced fellow now?" No. Gu Mingming shook her head. Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's chin. His deep blue eyes were filled with an unfathomable depth. His voice was low and filled with a murderous aura. "You didn't give me or Leah the position of your heart. Are you going to give it to him?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. No, no, Leah said. Ha, I remember that you said you liked his eyes and said they were like bright stars. Since you like it, how about I dig it out and give it to you? If you take the eyes, don't like him anymore. Gu Mingming facepalmed. Calm down, can you listen to my explanation? Elvis and Leah kept their mouths shut, the words "please start your performance" clearly written on their faces. Gu Mingming was already mentally prepared. From the moment she said those words in front of Duo La, she knew that she would definitely upset the two big vinegar vats in the house. Hence, she did not panic and just said, I don't like Fei Rue and Fei Rue has no such intentions towards me. The only reason I said that was because I couldn't bear to see Fei Rue, who was a good cabbage, be taken away by Dora. How about this, once we return to Saint Nazaire, I will chase Fei Rue back into the sea. If he doesn't scram, I will personally make him into sweet and sour fish slices. How about that? Actually, Elvis and Leah knew that there was nothing going on between Gu Mingming and Fei Rue. Chapter 968. But knowing was one thing. Hearing Gu Mingming admit that another male belonged to her still made Elvis and Leah feel disgusted. Gu Mingming also knew this, but she couldn't think of a better reason to reject Dora, so she just said it casually. It was precisely because she really didn't have any other feelings for Fei Rue that she dared to say such things in front of Elvis and Leah. If she liked Fei Rue even a little, she would definitely not say it in front of them. She would just extinguish the little flame in her heart as soon as possible. But luckily she was already very satisfied with Elvis and Leah, and no longer had any strange thoughts about other males. Gu Mingming coaxed Elvis and Leah for a long time with her honeyed words, and even promised repeatedly that she would never admit another male as hers, before they reluctantly let her off. But Leah gently hooked Gu Mingming's chin and said, Mingming, although what you said today was not true, it is true that I am upset. You clearly promised me that I would be your last partner, but you don't care about my feelings and even said in front of everyone that you want to take Fei Rue. My heart, it hurts so much. I care, how can I not care about your feelings? Gu Mingming caressed Leah's chest with her little hand. But Leah didn't buy it. He tilted his head and said, if you care about everything with your mouth, what about mute people? Gu Mingming, Leah inched forward and said, if you love me, do it for me to see? Gu Mingming thought for a moment, then stretched out her two little hands to form a heart. Lee's hand held onto Gu Mingming's little arm gently. Then, the two fingers of his other hand were like the two legs of a little person, walking along Gu Mingming's wrist step by step. That pair of long and narrow eyes followed his fingers all the way up, past her smooth shoulders, across her fair neck, and then gently caressing her cheeks. Finally, their gazes met and he said, you know very well that I'm not talking about this, right? Gu Mingming was completely stunned. They had been partners for more than a year, how could she not know what Leah was hinting at? That, let's talk about it when we return to Saint Nazaire after obtaining the soul of the forest. This is the wilderness. Leah looked down and said, you and Elvis only did it once in the wilderness, why can't you do it with me? Yes, she and Elvis did do it once on the way to the beauty pageant. But now Gu Mingming still couldn't stop blushing. Shaking his head, he decisively refused. No, we still have business tomorrow morning. We have to conserve our strength. Leah, are you doubting my stamina? Gu Mingming was stunned. Every time that happened, it would only end after she fainted. She had never seen where Leah and Elvis's stamina was at. Shi Ling Yang and Miet Mingming got it. By the time she finished speaking, Leonard and Peter had already returned with their prey. Gu Mingming used her eyes to plead for mercy. Leah ground his teeth. Promise us that you will compensate us after we return to Saint Nazaire. Gu Mingming hurriedly agreed and this matter was finally over. Chapter 969. What made Gu Mingming completely sober was the strange scene that appeared in front of her. The trees on both sides were intertwining at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if many pairs of hands were intertwining above their heads, forming a shady archway. The door was filled with white mist, giving off a familiar feeling. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes and thought to herself, could it be that she would see her lonely old man sitting on the long bench watching television if she walked in through this door? Filled with doubts, Elvis had already carried Gu Mingming into the arched door. The fog blocked their vision and even if Gu Mingming was in Elvis's arms, she could not even see his face, let alone others. Hobby. Gu Mingming tried calling out. Elvis instinctively tightened his grip on Gu Mingming's hand, his voice echoing just inches away from her. Yeah, I'm here. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and called again, Leah? A hand accurately held onto Gu Mingming's arm and a gentle voice soothed Gu Mingming's uneasiness. I'm here too. Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief and shouted again, where are the others? Are they all here? After receiving Wabi, Peter and Leonard's replies, Gu Mingming felt much more at ease. As he walked into the depths of the white fog, he could only rely on his body's senses to blindly confirm that he was heading inwards. Everywhere was a vast expanse of whiteness, and he couldn't tell the direction at all. Perhaps this was all thanks to the lonely old man in her family. Every time she went to see him, there would always be this white fog. After a few times she had gotten used to it. Otherwise she would be even more uneasy now. Clattering sounds came from all directions. They were very soft and hard to distinguish. Gu Mingming's hearing was very good now, and with Snake's 1,000 years of memories, there should be nothing in the beast world that she could not distinguish. But she had no impression of this voice at all. Leonard, how much do you know about the soul of the forest? Reynold, what the patriarch has passed down from generation to generation is that there is only one entrance. Our clansmen have never been here before. In other words, he only knew how to find the entrance. He didn't have much more information than Lin Li. Damn, he really brought a spectator in. Xiaoming, why don't we guard you while you take a nap? Elvis asked. Gu Mingming knew that Elvis meant for her to look for the beast deity to ask if there was any way to solve this white fog, so she directly replied, I asked the last time and my father said that I am capable enough to deal with this problem. The deeper they went into the white fog, the clearer the rattling sound became. It also became sharper, as if it was issuing some sort of warning. Leah and Leonard were the first to have trouble breathing, but as they were separated by the white fog, Gu Mingming didn't notice anything wrong with them. It was only until her left ear started to hurt that she instinctively asked, Leah, what's wrong with you? Leah shook his head, trying to pretend that nothing had happened. Leah? Gu Mingming questioned. Leah then recalled that they could not see each other in the white fog, so Gu Mingming naturally could not see him shaking his head. He wanted to tell her that he was fine. But when he opened his mouth, no words came out. Chapter 970. Leah could not say a word. The suffocating feeling was as if someone was squeezing his throat and stuffing countless cotton balls into his lungs. But he did not want Gu Mingming to worry, so he just squeezed her wrist forcefully to indicate that he was still alive. Gu Mingming closed her eyes and held Li's face based on her feelings. Then she planted a deep kiss on Li's lips. Then, Leah felt as if the blockage in his throat had been opened up. The cotton balls in his lungs also gradually melted away like cotton candy in contact with water, leaving only traces of sweetness spreading in his chest. After a long while, Leah let go of Gu Mingming. His lips moved up and landed lightly on her forehead. Then he said in a gentle voice, I'm fine, don't worry. The dull pain in her ears disappeared. Coupled with Li's calm tone, Gu Mingming finally relaxed. Wabiai's voice came from the white fog. One fainted. I don't know who it is. I picked him up and brought him along. Hearing Wabiai's words, Gu Mingming called out everyone's names one by one. Only Leonard did not respond. She guessed that Wabiai had picked him up. Gu Mingming felt a little uneasy. So, she wrapped one arm around Elvis's neck and the other tightly held onto Leah. This was the only way she could feel more at ease. After walking for a long time, there was still no end to the white fog. Gu Mingming was worried that Leah could not take it, so she asked, Leah, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Leah placed his other hand gently on the back of Gu Mingming's hand. No, I'm fine now. Gu Mingming felt more assured when she heard that Li's tone was not forced at all. Then she asked Elvis, Hubby, how about you? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Elvis wanted to say that he was fine, but he had promised not to hide anything from her. So he answered honestly. My breathing is a little irregular and I feel strangely irritated. But luckily I can take it. Gu Mingming knew that Elvis would definitely be able to take it if he said so. But since she could make him feel more comfortable, why should she make him suffer? Thus, Gu Mingming's little mouth gently pressed against Elvis's lips. A light and lingering kiss brushed away the turbidity and frustration in Elvis's chest. That faint sense of irritation also subsided. No one knew how long they had been walking, but when Elvis stepped out of the white fog, the brightness in front of them burned everyone's eyes. Before Gu Mingming could react, Elvis had already pressed the back of her head and pressed her face against his chest. He whispered into her ear, Slow down, it's too glaring. Yes. Gu Mingming gradually got used to the light on Elvis's chest, then slowly opened her eyes. She only raised her head from Elvis's embrace when she was completely used to it. After a head count, Leonard had fainted and was being carried along by Wabiai's snake tail. Chapter 971. Wabiai rolled his eyes at Gu Mengmeng with an impatient expression. He had come looking for a fight, but now he had become a nanny. So unhappy, so aggrieved, but he couldn't do anything to Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng surveyed her surroundings. The vegetation here was lush, but different from the usual style in the beast world. The forests in the beast world were also lush, but the style was more like that of the Amazon primeval forest. But here, the style was more like the 3D special effects in the movie Avatar. It was as beautiful as the background in a fairy tale, giving off a surreal feeling. But, her lonely old man was clearly not here. Looking back at the place they had come from, the white fog was like a whirlpool, a little like the teleportation portal in online games. Leah made a mark at the exit, before the group started walking deeper into the forest. Every plant she saw here was a novel experience for Gu Mengmeng. It was as if she had fallen into a fairyland. Everything was too much for her eyes to take in. Suddenly, a murderous aura assaulted her from the back. Before Gu Mengmeng could turn around, she heard a cry behind her. Looking over, she saw Peter lying on the ground, his entire body covered in poison that was corroding his skin. Gu Mengmeng recognized this poison. It was snakes. In just a blink of an eye, Wabiai had already wrapped Peter up tightly with his snake tail. His eyes were filled with danger, and his fangs were secreting poison. Why did he attack me? Gu Mengmeng didn't understand. Elvis also had a lingering fear. He had been vigilantly guarding his surroundings, but didn't expect danger to come from his side. Luckily, Snake's mark was protecting her, or Gu Mengmeng would have been injured. After all, Peter was a proper stray beast. Concealing his murderous aura before attacking was his specialty. Frowning, Elvis pulled Gu Mengmeng deeper into his chest. It must be the influence of the white fog. I was also feeling very frustrated just now and wanted to tear something to shreds. It was your kiss that calmed me down. Gu Mengmeng looked at Wabiai. What about you? You also wanted to tear something to shreds? Wabiai laughed coldly. I'm not a brainless little wolf. How could I fall for it so easily? I held my breath the moment I entered the white fog. Talking about age again, Gu Mengmeng's heart twitched. Yes, the fact that she had slept with a 16-year-old wolf boy was a thorn in her heart. Besides, I'm a snake. Even if I feel irritated, I'll strangle it. Why would I want to tear something apart? Gu Mengmeng pouted. Little shit. What? Wabiai expressed his displeasure at Gu Mengmeng calling him that. Gu Mengmeng giggled at Wabiai's furious expression. It's alright, I was just casually shouting. I didn't expect you to actually agree. Hehe, it seems like you've already recognized your own status. Scram. Wabiai roared angrily. He glared at Gu Mengmeng, but his lips were curled into a smile. In the past, when Snake was around, he would start the fight straight away without any nonsense. It was only after he met Gu Mengmeng that he realized how interesting it was to have someone to bicker with. Peter and Leonard were in varying degrees of unconsciousness and were wrapped up by Wabiai like luggage in the snake's tail. Then the group continued walking in. Chapter 972. Vines snaked all over the place just like a blood-stained cave. Cobwebs were tightly woven and the faint red glow on the vines was like flowing blood, giving one the chills. Gu Mengmeng frowned and looked closely at the dark red flowing vines. The glowing and flowing parts were all on the veins of the leaves, just like human blood flowing in the blood vessels. Gu Mengmeng instinctively shrank her neck and snuggled into Elvis's arms. Scared? Elvis asked with concern. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, This scene is like a survival in the wild version of a haunted house. It's a little scary. Then let's not go in and go back the way we came? Elvis really didn't care much about that soul of the forest. Not to mention that Xianxuan's life was no longer in danger. Even if his life was hanging by a thread and he needed that thing to save his life, he would not let Gu Mengmeng hold back her fear to take that thing. But Gu Mengmeng was different. She shook her head and said, I must get the soul of the forest. Why don't you and Leah wait here and I will go in and help you get it? Elvis suggested another solution. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and smiled. But I don't want to be separated from you. Then? Elvis met Gu Mengmeng's bright eyes and his heart softened into a mess. He could only kiss her brow dotingly and indulgently, saying, Be good and hide in my arms, I will protect you. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head. Gu Mengmeng nodded obediently and rested her head on Elvis's shoulder. Elvis, Leah and Wabiai exchanged glances and raised their attention to the highest level. They had never seen anything here before. Stepping into a completely foreign world made them feel very uneasy, especially when they were carrying a female that they could not allow to have any mishaps. Hence they became even more cautious with every step they took. Leah walked in front to open the way while Elvis carried Gu Mingming in the middle. Wabi walked at the back, ready to use his snake tail to pull Gu Mingming out if anything happened. One of Lee's feet had just stepped into the range of the blood-red vines, and before he could even lift his other foot, the vines had already started to move around, like countless blood snakes entangling and twisting, making rattling noises that made one's hair stand on end. Leah did not dare to move again and just watched the movements of the vines with his guard up. He waited until the vines stopped moving and confirmed that nothing dangerous had happened before he raised his hind legs and entered the place. With this step, the vines shook even more violently, and the rattling sounds became louder. Gu Mingming wanted Leah to retreat, but before she could open her mouth, those vines attacked Leah from all directions. Leah did not even have time to dodge before he was wrapped up by the vines and hung in midair. Then he was quickly wrapped up into a cocoon. The mark on her left ear stung. Gu Mingming knew that Leah was injured, and it was a very serious injury. Elvis turned around and handed Gu Mingming over to Wabi. Without saying a word, he flew into the air and pounced towards that cocoon. He reached out his claws in midair, wanting to cut the vines in half to save Leah. But with one swipe of his claws, the vines did not even leave a mark, not to mention cutting them. Elvis's attack did not cause any damage and instead seemed to have angered those vines. So much so that Elvis had not even landed on the ground when he was already entangled by the vines. It was exactly the same as how he dealt with Leah. Aside from the topic, baby, today's update has ended. Chapter 973. In just a few breaths' time, there were already 2 red vine pupae in midair. Gu Mingming could sense that Elvis was releasing his beast pressure in an attempt to struggle, but the blood vines did not move at all, as if they were completely unaffected by the beast pressure. The same piercing pain came from her collarbone. Elvis was also injured. This realization drove Gu Mingming crazy. In that instant she regretted it. If the price of obtaining the soul of the forest was losing Elvis and Leah, then she did not want it anymore. She would think of other ways to redeem her sons. She could not let anything happen to Elvis and Leah. With that thought in mind, Gu Mingming was already charging towards the red vines. She was the most powerful in the entire beast world. If there was anyone who had the ability to save them, it would be her. Before she could even step in, she felt something tighten around her waist. Her feet immediately left the ground and her body retreated backwards. The moment she stopped, Wabi's venomous eyes were inches away. His bone-chilling voice assaulted Gu Mingming's eardrums. "What do you want to do?" "I want to save my man." Wabi's snake tail wrapped tightly around Gu Mingming's waist. He gritted his teeth. "He exchanged his life for yours. I will not allow you to waste it anywhere." Gu Mingming bit her lower lip. She knew that Snake had sacrificed himself to save her life. She knew what she had lost to Snake. But no matter how guilty she felt, she could not watch Elvis and Leah die. "Stay here obediently. I will go save your little wolf pups and cunning foxes." Wabi let go of Gu Mingming. In his half-beast form he was at least 2.5 meters tall. He was unbelievably imposing in front of Gu Mingming. He turned around with his back facing Gu Mingming. "Unless I die, I will not allow you to trample on his treasures." With that, Wabi shot into the range of the red vines like an arrow. His speed was faster than the vine's movement speed, so it was not easy for the vines to wrap around him. After over 800 years of battling with Snake, he was very clear on how to avoid damage in a linear attack. But even so, there were just too many vines to deal with. In the end, Wabi became the 3rd vine pupa in midair. Gu Mingming knew that Elvis and Leah would not be able to hold on much longer. She had no time to waste. Even though her body quality was far from a male's, she had Snake's strength. So when she neared the red vines, the moment the vines attacked her, she grabbed one of them and pulled it forcefully, tearing it apart. The end that was connected to the root seemed to be in great pain as it trembled and shrank back. The other end that was torn off was like a fish that was stranded on the shore, flopping around meaninglessly for a while before it stopped moving. Red liquid flowed out from the wound, and the corpse of the vine gradually became transparent as the red liquid flowed out. Chapter 974. The vines didn't break, but they cut Gu Mingming's hand. Then, the vines in her hand were like fruits placed in a fruit dryer, withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, the red liquid slowly flowed into Gu Mingming's body through the wound on her palm like silk. Gu Mingming was at a loss at this sudden change and didn't know what to do. She could only open her palm and watch as the red vines gradually lost their color. Thousands of silk threads gathered in her palm and finally entered her body. Gu Mingming could feel an endless amount of energy flowing into her body, challenging and breaking through the limits of what her body could withstand. In the end, only the 3 pupae in midair were left in this sea of red. Ah! Gu Mingming screamed as she endured the pain from the swelling of her body. In an instant, the 3 pupae burst open. A black figure dashed towards Gu Mingming and caught her as she fell backward. He protected her in his arms and kissed her forehead. His heart ached for her sweaty and exhausted appearance. He whispered, "Xiaoming, it's all right now, it's all right now." Wabi returned to Gu Mingming's side at almost the same time as Elvis. He just stood behind Gu Mingming, pursing his lips and not saying a word. And Leah was not as powerful as Elvis and Wabi. He was also the first to be wrapped in the pupae and was the weakest. He wanted to be like Elvis and use his last bit of energy to rush towards Gu Mingming. Even if he died, he wanted to die in her arms. But unfortunately, this was the difference in their abilities. He used his last bit of energy to break out of the pupae. Leah, after the pupae wrapped them up, the leaves became incomparably sharp. Lee's entire body was covered in wounds. Although he knew medicine and had protected his important arteries and larger blood vessels in advance, he was still covered in wounds from the leaves and was covered in blood. He heard Gu Mingming calling him, so he gritted his teeth and forced a smile as he slowly walked towards her. One step, another step. When he finally reached her, Gu Mingming was sobbing uncontrollably. Leah knelt down on one knee and caressed Gu Mingming's face. "Mingming, don't be afraid. I am here." Gu Mingming's consciousness was already on the verge of blurring. The last scene she saw was countless blood-like red liquid exploding on Lee's back, before shooting towards her like congealed blood needles. Her vision darkened and Gu Mingming fainted. As long as Elvis and Leah were fine, that was good. She died, then so be it. In any case, she would only cause trouble for them. If it wasn't for her willfulness, the 2 of them would probably be able to live a better life. Someone kept calling her name by her ear, but she couldn't open her tired eyes. Her whole body sank down, lying in the position of a baby in its mother's womb, as if her whole body was soaked in a kind of scarlet blood. Silence. Chapter 975. After Gu Mingming regained her consciousness, she opened her mouth to speak but realized that her throat was extremely hoarse and so dry that it hurt. Elvis immediately brought a cup of water to her lips so that she could moisten her throat. This water was very sweet and different from what she had drunk in the past. There was no pollution in the beast world and all springs, streams and rivers could be used directly. It had a special natural sweetness, but this cup was different. After drinking it, she could feel the sweetness spreading through her blood vessels to every part of her body. Her dry body felt as if it was being nourished and irrigated. That feeling was very magical. It was as if her body had been cleansed completely and she had become transparent and clean. "Is everyone all right?" Gu Mingming could finally speak. Elvis nodded and carried Gu Mingming into his arms like a princess. He deeply inhaled the fragrance of her hair to calm down the uneasiness he had been feeling for the past few days. His voice was tired and hoarse, but it was mixed with a different kind of gentleness. "Only you were unconscious for 3 days and 2 nights, everyone else is fine." Gu Mingming nodded. Gu Mingming then nodded and felt much more at ease. Turning her head, Gu Mingming leaned her entire body against Elvis's chest and reached out a hand to caress Lee's face. Her body was very tired, but she tried her best to smile. "It's great that you are all right." Gu Mingming's voice was a little weak. "I was really scared when I saw you covered in blood before I fainted." Leah covered Gu Mingming's hand with his large hand and pulled it from his face to his lips. He kissed it deeply and said, "I'm sorry I'm too weak and made you worry." Gu Mingming smiled and shook her head. "It's not that you're too weak, it's that I brought you guys to a dangerous place. It's all my fault. I had no confidence at all and let you guys take the risk with me." "Silly girl." Lee's lips could not bear to leave this soft little hand. He had been holding it like this for the past 3 days, afraid that her hand would turn cold and he would never be able to lift it again. Now that this little hand was still warm and his Gu Mingming could still talk to him, the panic he had been suppressing for the past 3 days started to flare up. The more he thought about it, the more scared he became. Partners exist to protect you and do whatever you want. If I can't protect you, it will be my sin. Gu Mingming did not argue with Leah about the beast world's views on love. After all, in the beast world where, if you don't act, you won't love me, it was really hard for Gu Mingming to tell them not to be too petty in love. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming's shoulders to make her sit up straight, then he sat opposite her. His blue eyes stared deeply at Gu Mingming as he frowned with a serious expression. Gu Mingming had never seen Elvis facing her so seriously before. She panicked for a moment and subconsciously smiled to please him, asking, "Hubby, what's wrong?" Elvis did not say a word and just stared deeply at Gu Mingming. His thin lips were pressed into a straight line, giving off an oppressive feeling as if a storm was brewing. Gu Mingming felt that Elvis was angry this time, but she did not know what he was angry about, so she looked at Leah for help. Unexpectedly, Lee's eyes darkened and he actually sat beside Elvis. Chapter 976. What exactly happened? Gu Mingming asked cautiously. Elvis took 2 deep breaths before saying slowly, "Why didn't you escape then?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion. Escape? When? Where to escape to? Leah continued Elvis's words and continued, "Wabi already told us that when we were entangled by the blood vines, you had the chance to escape. But not only did you not escape, you even charged towards the blood vines." Lee's tone was gentler than Elvis's, but his words were full of reproach. This made Gu Mingming feel as if she did not stay behind to save them, but just ran away without a care in the world. Wasn't this state of mind reversed? Shouldn't he be extremely touched, kissing, hugging and raising her high up in the air? Why was he acting as if she was having an affair and wanted to divorce him? "Xiaoming, you promised us that you would prioritize your own safety under any circumstances." Every word of Elvis sounded as if he had used a knife to pry open his heart and grinded his words with his blood. Gu Mingming felt a throbbing pain in her heart just by listening to him. She could feel her heart throbbing in pain. "I remember." Gu Mingming's voice softened and she frowned, but did not look like she was admitting her mistake. She said stubbornly, "But the situation this time is special. If I didn't help, you and Leah would have died." How could Elvis not know that Gu Mingming was risking her life for them? It would be a lie to say that he was not touched. He was so touched that he wanted to dig out his own heart and crush it to appease the strange movements in his chest. "But, it is my honor to die for you." Clenching his teeth, he carefully polished every inch of Gu Mingming's worries during the 3 days she was unconscious. With the blood in his heart, he ground it into cinnabar and dripped it between his lips. He used his words to let her clearly see the wound on his heart and how painful and fatal it was. "If anything happens to you, the both of us will not be able to die in peace." Leah had said these words to her before. At that time they were still in the Snake King Valley and Snake was still alive. She used her body to block in front of Elvis to prevent Snake from using his snake tail to whip Elvis, but in the end, Elvis protected her in his arms and forcefully received Snake's tail. At that time she begged Leah to quickly save Elvis, but Leah held her shoulders and said, "If anything were to happen to you, we wouldn't be able to rest in peace. If we still have any weight in your heart, promise me that you will prioritize your own safety under any circumstances." She remembered what she had promised. But if she really wanted to watch Elvis and Leah die while she stayed out of it and escaped, she could not do it. Raising her head, Gu Mingming's eyes reddened. "Let me tell you, I regret it." Chapter 977. Elvis clenched his fists for a long time before finally giving in to Gu Mingming's tears. Hugging her in his arms, Elvis sighed deeply. "I want to protect your smile, but I always make you cry. I'm still too weak." Snake's last words to him were like an awl hanging over his heart. Whenever Gu Mingming was hurt or wronged, it would fall down and stab him viciously. Gu Mingming shook her head. "You have already done very well, really very well, but you still cried." Elvis cupped Gu Mingming's little face, his heart aching for her. He kissed away her tears and stared into her reddened eyes. "You clearly know that I am helpless against your tears, but you still cry and force me to give in." Wabi walked over and snorted coldly. "Are you done with your nonsense? Are you still going to take the soul of the forest?" Gu Mingming's face was still covered in tears. She turned to look at Wabi. "Oh little shit, you are not dead." Wabi gritted his teeth. "I have already said that the only person who can kill me in this world has been killed by you. So I will not die." Gu Mingming nodded. "Yes, people say that a scourge lives for 1,000 years, so you can at least live for another 200 years. Wabi realized that he had no advantage over Gu Mingming at all. He could not win in a fight, nor could he win in an argument. In the end he just rolled his eyes in anger and didn't say anything else. But with Wabi's interference, Gu Mingming stopped crying. Sniffing, she looked around and realized that she was no longer with the blood vines. She asked, "Were you all hurrying along when I was unconscious?" Elvis shook his head. "When you were unconscious, we didn't dare to move you for fear of an accident. So we did not move from the same spot." "Did not move from the same spot?" Gu Mingming was extremely confused. The surrounding scenery was crystal clear, as if it was a world carved out of crystal. It was pure white and transparent, so clean that one could not bear to touch it for fear of tarnishing its purity. Where was the sinister look of the blood vines? If the blood vines were like a blood-stained cave, then this place was like the Jade Lake Palace in the Nine Heavens. If one looked closely, it would not be difficult to discover that the crystalline plant was extremely similar to the blood vines. This is... Gu Mingming stared at it blankly for a long time before she recalled the dazzling red silk that gathered in her palm before she fainted. Spreading open his palm, the wound on his palm had already healed completely. There was no trace of it at all. Gu Mingming mumbled in a daze, so it wasn't a hallucination caused by my severe injuries. I really sucked the blood from the blood vines into my body? When did I become so capable? Elvis did not see the entire process of her absorption, but he did see the process of her absorbing the 3 vine chrysalises. Now that he saw her staring at her palm in a daze, he could not help but worry and asked, "Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" Gu Mingming looked at him and asked, "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "I just felt a huge amount of energy entering my body at that time, but now I don't feel anything." Only then did Elvis heave a sigh of relief. "There's something strange about this place. We shouldn't stay here for long. We'd better end this quickly and return after taking the soul of the forest." Chapter 978. For some strange reason, Gu Mingming reached out a hand. That blood vine. Oh no, it should be called crystal vine now. The crystal vines intertwined with each other and formed a palm-like shape. Mimicking Gu Mingming's actions, it lightly stuck onto her palm. Then, with a rustling sound, the crystal vine in front of them parted to reveal a fairyland in front of Gu Mingming's group. Elvis and Leah exchanged a look but didn't say a word. Leonard walked forward and bowed to Gu Mingming. "I was here to help, but I didn't expect to become a burden. This time let me lead the way." Gu Mingming didn't say a word and just nodded. Humans were all selfish. She didn't want Elvis and Leah to take any more risks. If they ended up in a cocoon and hung in midair again, Gu Mingming would go crazy. Peter felt guilty for attacking Gu Mingming, but he wasn't someone who would apologize. To him, rather than saying sorry 100 times, it was better to do something right to make up for it. Moreover, he didn't trust Leonard. So he didn't say a word and just silently walked to Leonard's side to lead the way. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and followed behind them, while Leah stood by Elvis's side, protecting Gu Mingming from both sides. After all, he had the advantage of being longer. If there was a special situation, he could use his tail to fish Gu Mingming back. The group walked along the path that the crystal vine had guided them. The scenery was beautiful, but no one was in the mood to appreciate it. Gu Mingming couldn't stand the silence and poked Leah. "I just thought of something." Leah glanced at her and replied gently, "Hmm?" Gu Mingming said, "Do you remember when I was in the deep sea I told you that I had a dream? I dreamt that there was an endless amount of blood exploding in the sky behind you, and you came drenched in blood. That scene coincided with the last scene I saw before I fainted. It was exactly the same." Leah smiled playfully. "Could it be that father-in-law gave you the heaven's eye of prophecy?" Gu Mingming shook her head. "How is that possible? Our lonely old man is very stingy. I don't know why he never gives me extra pocket money. If he really has the heavenly eye, he won't give it to me unless he drags me to watch 8 or 10 episodes of a TV series." Leah had heard too many of Gu Mingming's complaints about the beast deity. From the initial panic, he could now laugh it off. He nodded and said, "That could just be a coincidence." Gu Mingming lowered her head and said hesitantly, "If it's a coincidence, it's too much of a coincidence. The images are so accurate that every frame is exactly the same." Leah knew that Gu Mingming had a photographic memory after inheriting Snake's abilities, so he did not suspect that she had remembered wrongly. It was just a dream, so Leah did not take it to heart. He just rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and told her not to think too much. Gu Mingming thought about it and agreed. It was a waste of time to make wild guesses. She could just ask that lonely old man the next time she met him. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly heard an anguished wail. Gu Mingming seemed to have been scared out of her wits by the blood vines. Once she heard the wails, she immediately looked around with a face full of wariness. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.